Gary Whitta and Derek Robertson plunge the world into darkness as Batman fights to save his city from falling further into chaos while investigating a much larger threat that looms over the entire world. Gary Whitta, writer of Rogue One and Star Wars Rebels, dips his toes into the world of DC Comics with a Batman story that is actually a lot larger than it's made out to be. Just looking at the book and its premise in general, it feels like your standard Batman story. Batman has to fight villains in a blacked out city and stop Gotham from falling into chaos, but as the issue goes on, we surprisingly learn this is just a small part of a large-scale alien invasion story as Batman pieces together something has happened to the world and some of its heroes, primarily his friend Superman, who has disappeared. I enjoyed how while Batman and Alfred were investigating these weird atmospheric disturbances, we did get Batman just doing his thing in the city and trying to keep the city together. His chats with Alfred and Gordon throughout the issue were definitely the highlight for me, since it gave us something we don't really see, which is just the heroes working things through and working out what's happening. It's not all action constantly bombarding us, and it also shows how well these characters are working together and how long they've been doing it, so much so that they have sort of a short form when they talk with each other and kind of know what's going on with each other and everything. And I liked Bruce and Gordon having sort of a chat as friends. I thought that was really quite cool. Batman's inner monologue is equally as great, and I like that it's a little bit more of a hopeful dialogue than previous Batmans we've seen. This is a Batman who's part of a larger world and one where he's seen hope and how to deal with problems differently, and we see it here on display when he saved Joker, having those thoughts about what happens if he does kill him, but knowing it would betray everything he stands for. I'm very much looking forward to the story really cracking open next issue, and hopefully we learn a little bit more about what the alien threat is, since here it's kind of like Independence Day at the start of that movie where we just know there is something coming and there is something looming over the world, but we're not really told what it is yet. Derek Robertson of The Boys fame returns to draw Batman again, and I love his grimy, mostly realistic work and how it fits with the Dark Knight and his world of dark Gotham. Everything is wonderfully coloured and illuminated with car lights and torches, and it really lends itself to Batman's always in the shadows aesthetics. His Bruce Wayne is also reminding me of the animated series Bruce Wayne, which is never a bad thing either, and I thought his little fight with Bruce at the start was kinda cool. Batman Fortress Issue 1 was a really surprising beginning to a story which starts out as a Batman story, but thanks to Gary Whitta's quick setups of the plot and Robertson's grimy and gritty art, it soon cracks open into something much more larger and intriguing. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10. Batman Fortress Issue 1 finds all of Gotham and the surrounding Gotham County plunged into darkness as the power mysteriously goes out. Some criminals meanwhile decides to make best of the situation and break into Wayne Manor, knowing with the city blacked out, the Batman will be busy dealing with all of the chaos. The robbers scale the manor's walls, talking about how even Wayne's salt shakers are worth a lot of money, having seen them on Antiques Roadshow. The thieves make it inside the darkened estate, but immediately one man Vince is taken. His friends find his torch on the ground, spooking them into thinking that they should go as another finds a string of pearls. Bruce Wayne appears, telling them to be careful with the pearls. He warns them that they have one chance to put everything down and leave, but one of the thieves knows he can handle a rich man in a sports coat. Bruce, however, knocks the man out with one punch as his friend pulls a gun, knowing he's got 5 kids to feed. Alfred appears, asking if he might take the liberty to deal with him, disarming the man and knocking him out. Bruce compliments his friend, putting the pearls back and telling Alfred to put the thieves in the safe room until the GCPD can come and get them, and he wants him to find out if the one with the gun really does have 5 kids and if his foundation can help them. Alfred knows he'll have to add that to the list since there are more pressing matters, something far worse than at the citywide blackout. In Gotham, Jim Gordon oversees his men rigging up the bat signal to try and start it again. Bullock asks how many radio cars he stripped of batteries to make this work, and Jim knows it's not that hard to work out. Bullock knows that those cars could have been put on the road and put to work, but Jim knows that without the power, the radio cars aren't connected to dispatch, and he's not sending his people out there deaf, dumb and blind, with no way to call for help. Harvey thinks that he knew the risks when putting on the badge, so Jim suggests maybe Bullock should go out in a car with no backup. This shuts him up as Jim assures him that Tech is working on getting the comms back up. Bullock thinks that he's just putting in a Hail Mary call into the guy with the Halloween store costume costume in the meantime. So Jim asks why Bullock is even there. Bullock gives the commissioner a note, frustrating Jim even more as he finds out the inmates of Arkham have all gotten out. The cops manage to get the signal working, booting it up and sending it into the sky. They wonder if Batman will show, and Jim knows that he likes the dark and all they can do now is hope. Bruce meanwhile is told by Alfred that the power outage is actually worldwide, with many cities around the world experiencing it, with telecommunications, internet and GPS networks all going down. Bruce theorizes this is some type of attack, and Alfred notes how whatever is causing it, it's spreading panic and fear around the world. He knows that batteries and generators seem to work most of the time, and the cave's reactor is unaffected for now. Bruce asks about their satellites, finding that all but one is offline, and they are still receiving telemetry from it. Bruce wants it to scan for anything extraterrestrial as he asks about Metropolis being dark, wondering if there's been any signs of Superman, but Alfred knows they can't even detect his unique energy signature anymore. Bruce knows that something isn't right if Superman hasn't appeared, so Alfred decides he'll try and locate his friend while Bruce responds to the city's problems. Bruce tells him to contact the other members of the Justice League and get them to assemble at the HQ since the world's got bigger problems than Gotham, so they need to be ready. As Alfred leaves to get to work, Bruce wonders where his friend Clark has gone, as later on, Batman meets with Gordon, impressed with how he got the signal to work. He tells Jim it's not just Gotham suffering the blackout, but the entire world, making the man lament how last week his doctor put him on some new blood pressure pills, making him think the doctor is a damn clairvoyant. He tells Batman how bad it is out in the city with the power down and the comms being disabled, not allowing them any form of response at all. He compares it to the movie The Purge, surprising Batman that that's actually a movie, making Jim realize that he doesn't get out without the cape much. Batman thinks it will calm down once the sun comes up, but Jim knows that that was only half their problem since there was a mass breakout at Arkham thanks to all of the electronic locks going offline when the power did. He asks if Batman knows who's behind this, but the hero knows that it's just some massive electromagnetic disturbance in the upper atmosphere, not knowing what caused it yet, but he wants to get through the night in order to find out. He gives Jim some specs that should help his people make modifications to their radios so they can use them, also giving them his own frequency so the cops can contact him and he can contact them directly when he apprehends the escaped criminals. Jim thanks him, but Batman knows he doesn't need to, asking if his friend is okay. Jim knows he is, finding Batman has been the only person who's ever asked him that, wondering if they really are friends. Batman leaves, knowing they are friends, or at least as close as it gets when one of them is wearing a mask. Batman heads into the city, finding people rioting and looting shops, knowing he doesn't need to deal with them since he has bigger fish to catch, figuring all of the businesses they are looting have insurance anyway, and it's not his job to protect their profit margins. He remembers how in his father's day the American dream actually meant something, but now it's an illusion, only attainable by a very few number of people and dangled out of reach of everyone else. He doesn't blame these people for grabbing at the dream now, and he doesn't want people to look at him to stop them. Elsewhere in the city, a Joker gang member holds a family hostage, wanting to shoot one of them to show the others he's serious. Batman appears, taking the thugs down, as at Gotham Harbor, Penguin tries to drown a woman in the surf while singing a song. Batman appears, firing his grapple around Oswald and tying him to the pier, saving the woman, as Bruce knows that these villains are predators who feast on the innocent, and the ones who get off on the misery and the suffering are the reason he keeps doing this even when he doubts himself. On a nearby bridge, Joker has commandeered a bus full of children, demanding they sing since they should be happy. Batman appears in the road in front of him and Joker steps on the gas, intending on running over the Dark Knight. Batman, however, pulls out a 1 million lumen torch, shining it directly at Joker's face and blinding him, causing him to crash the bus and fly through the front window. Batman helps the kids out of the back of the bus as Joker hangs from the front of the bus over the bridge. Batman knows that the villain can't swim, remembering how he flailed around in the chemicals all those years ago. He had thought about letting him drown back then, and it would have saved Gotham a lot of grief, and even saved Jason. He knows life doesn't give many second chances, and now it's handing him one on a silver platter, and all he needs to do is not do anything. But how would he explain that to the watching kids? As Joker falls, Batman fires a grapple around his leg, tying him off on the bridge as he contacts GCPD, telling them that he caught the villains and saved the children. Later in Crime Alley, Batman arrives too late to save a couple from being shot to death by a looter, grabbing the gunman and mercilessly beating him over and over, knowing there is a reason why he usually stays clear of this part of town, since there are too many ghosts and it clouds his judgment and he loses control. Some cops soon arrive, knowing they best not interfere familiar with the hero, but Batman tells them of the man's various broken bones and injuries, telling them to keep pressure on his armor until the EMTs arrive. He tells them that there is a murder weapon in the alley and he knows Sunrise is coming, and while it's a friend of Gotham, it's not a friend of his. He returns to the cave, telling Alfred that the city is rather crime-filled that night. He gifts Alfred a souvenir shirt he picked up in town celebrating the blackout, as Alfred tells him the blackout in comms is now completely worldwide. Bruce wonders how they're going to reboot it all, so Alfred reveals that when he was out, the scans came back and he was able to analyze the telemetry and find an unidentified aerial phenomenon that is holding position over the Indian Ocean. Bruce thinks that it's some type of alien ship or life form, but Alfred knows it's not from Earth since it matches none of their databases and it's radiating an energy wave aimed directly at the planet that is too complex to identify. Bruce knows this is some type of warship and its disruption might mean it's a prelude to an invasion. Alfred agrees as Bruce asks if he's heard anything from Clark, but Alfred is afraid he's heard nothing from the Man of Steel, wondering where he is during this dire situation. Bruce knows that they can't wait around, asking if the League are assembled, and Alfred knows they're all waiting at the HQ, wondering if they are declaring war here. Bruce dons his cowl, telling his friend that this ship declared war when they shut down the planet, and now it's time to hit back hard.